Who are those teams? And look, there's no guarantee he's going to continue his career. I think the interesting thing that he said was when his career ends, he's going to go out like Kaiser Soze in The Usual Suspects, and you're not going to hear from or see from him, right? He's not signing that big television deal like Tom Brady did. He's not going to be an analyst. I mean, who knows, though? Maybe he does pursue his true passion in life, and that is being Pat McAfee's co-host. I mean, who knows? But if he does want to continue his career, I got 5 teams. 5 teams, and we'll start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, what the Pittsburgh Steelers have going for them is that is a Mike Tomlin run organization. And this is not a conversation about whether Mike Tomlin's overrated as a head coach, if he relies too much on those Super Bowls he won early on in his career. The Rooney family, they're a trusted organization, a family that knows what they're doing. The Steelers are one of the biggest brands in the sport. You can't go into Pittsburgh and push them around. They had an experience this year with an eccentric quarterback. There was a former all-pro level player that has a history of kind of ruffling teammates' feathers and this and that. And it proved that, yeah, it didn't work out as far as the team's success in the long term. But Russell Wilson did have his moments for a couple of stretches there, and he did not destroy their culture. And the other thing, too, is you look at where the Pittsburgh Steelers are at. They want to stay flexible for 2026. So if you want to sign Justin Fields to a contract extension, a multi-year deal to bring him back, I don't think that's what they're going to do. Wilson, they're not going to bring him back. He struggled down the stretch. The Steelers lost each of the last 5 games with Russell Wilson as their quarterback. If you test drove that and still want to drive it off the lot, then you're buying a lemon, okay? That's not a good deal on your end. You didn't score more than 17 points in any of those games. So could Aaron Rodgers be better than Russell Wilson was for the Steelers last season? I think he possibly could. So the Steelers are one team. I'm going to save the team that I think he ends up signing with forward to the end, but let's keep going down the list. Tennessee Titans, they own the number 1 pick. And here's the thing, even if the Titans go out there and draft Cam Ward, draft Jador Sanders, you don't want to plug those guys in to that roster as your starter in year 1. You just don't want to put them into that situation. And even if you do ultimately, like we saw with Michael Penix Jr. getting burned late in the season, you still want to have that bridge quarterback. And I think the number 1 question there, if I'm the Titans, is if you do meet with Aaron Rodgers, is he willing to embrace his role as a mentor type of quarterback that can take those guys under his wing? By the way it sounds from guys like Garrett Wilson and guys like that, it doesn't feel like he wants any part of that as far as a mentorship role. But with the Titans, I mean, you had Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. You need a quarterback for Brian Callahan's team. So the Titans are an option. 49ers are interesting to me. San Francisco is an extremely interesting option to me. He's a California dude, a West Coast dude. He went to Cal Berkeley. And the big question with the 49ers is Brock Purdy your guy? Do you really make Mr. Irrelevant a quarterback that signs a contract that gets him a $55 million annual salary? Is Brock Purdy truly that guy for you? Because if I'm the 49ers and I saw what happened last year, I'm scared about my championship window. It looked like they were going to win that division, be right back in the mix to compete for a Super Bowl, and things just did not go their way. And Aaron Rodgers, if you give him weapons like Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel has a $15.8 million cap hit. He requested trade this offseason. That could give the 49ers some extra financial stability so you could add even another piece around him. So a re-energized coming home, a homecoming to the Bay Area, that's interesting to me. The New Orleans Saints is another team. The Saints, basically zero cap space to work with. Man, that black card has been maxed out, man. Everything, they have no credit. The Klarna, everything is just, they got nothing. And they enter the offseason with $54 million above the cap. And you got Derek Carr, who has a $51.45 million cap in 25. It's even bigger in 26 at over $61 million. You could save $30 million by releasing Carr with that post-June 1st designation. And then you'd be on the books for $21 million in dead cap in 25, another $28 million in 2026. So if you trade him post-June 1st, which would take some maneuvering, you could save $40 million. So imagine that. get out from underneath the quarterback that's taking you nowhere, and then you get a quarterback with Kellen Moore in the Saints that is an offensive weapon. That's interesting too. Still have some weapons in New Orleans. Then the team that I think he ends up with is the Raiders. The Raiders are the team that is ran by Tom Brady, that is always looking for that next guy, so to speak. And they have a tandem of Gardner Minshew and Aiden McConnell. They were bad. They weren't good enough. And what Aaron Rodgers could bring them is another bridge type guy. And they have a ton of cap space. The Raiders have $85 million in cap space. That's the second most in the National Football League. And even if they're waiting on their quarterback, I don't think the Raiders think their quarterback is in this draft. I think that they probably view their quarterback in the 2026 draft when it's a much deeper quarterback draft class. So would Aaron Rodgers disrespect Pete Carroll? They kind of feel like West Coast guys. They've won Super Bowls. They've had success. I mean, they had history in the Pac-12 when Pete Carroll was at USC and Aaron Rodgers was at Cal. I think he ends up with the Las Vegas Raiders. And look, like I said, Las Vegas is the town, man. You have a great career. You end up in Las Vegas. And I'm not saying he's going to have success, but I think the Raiders make the most sense as far as a guy that kind of gets him. I mean, Browns, Titans, Giants, Vikings, Raiders, Saints. I mean, he just looks like you don't even need a jersey swap. It just feels like you can just visualize him in a Raiders jersey. But of those teams, J-Rob, which team do you like for Aaron Rodgers?
The retirement home.
The retirement home.
That's the team. That's the team that Aaron Rodgers needs to send himself to, retirement. You go to the Raiders, it sounds good. Listen, Tennessee, the Raiders, those probably sound the two best. I think the most ideal would be the Steelers if he wants a chance to potentially compete for a championship. I think the Steelers would be the best option. Good foundation with but obviously with Mike Tomlin, you have a good defense. You have a young budding receiver in George Pickens. I do like Jalen Warren. There are that offensive line does need to be upgraded massively. If you're going to bring Aaron Rodgers in with that bad offensive line in Pittsburgh, then it's just going to be Jets Part 2. However, Doug, I just don't think Aaron Rodgers is a winning football player anymore. That's just truly where I'm at with it. I think when you get to an age of 42 years old, he's not Tom Brady at 42. Tom Brady at 42 was still out there in the summertime, sweating, bleeding with his teammates to make sure they were in the best position to win. He's not, to me, he doesn't seem as obsessed over it like a Tom Brady who can play up into that age. When I look at Aaron Rodgers, I see somebody who's past his prime, who nobody has told him yet that he is past his prime. And the reality of it for me is when I look at Aaron Rodgers, I just see a shell of that guy that was in Green Bay. And I think you can use it as a bridge for a lot of these teams to bring in a new young guy. But knowing Aaron Rodgers, Doug, if you let's just say the Raiders do bring him in, and then we hear with the 6th pick of the draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Shedeur Sanders. With the history and things we know of Aaron Rodgers, is he going to help a guy like that get ready for the next role? Or is he going to look at like, this is my job and I'm here now and I'm the franchise guy? I just don't know when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. There's been a lot of red flags for me. I think the best thing for him to do is not tarnish his legacy trying to chase these ghostly championships, but sit down. You're already a first ballot Hall of Famer. You're sitting on a bunch of MVPs. You got your token trophy. Super Bowl trophy, and so you can go off into the sunset. Be that guy that doesn't want to be heard from anymore, even though I doubt that too. He'll probably be on Pat McAfee for a decade, but we'll see what happens. Sorry I'm so harsh, man.
It's understandable because you're a Jets fan, and I totally get it. I mean, you've been burned by this guy, and I totally understand.
Like this since he was in Green Bay, man. But
the truth, I mean, like his QBR was better than Dak Prescott's last year. I mean, the truth of the matter is, for as bad as it was, you had to consider situation. Mm-hmm. The Jets have been a dumpster fire of an organization for the better half of the last 15, 20 years. So I just think that, look, as bad as Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he wasn't even bad. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great, though. He was really
average.
He was average. And the truth of the matter is an average quarterback, you can still, I mean, would you take him over Kirk Cousins? Yes. Would you take him over Russell Wilson? Yes. Would you take him over Daniel Jones?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's pretty bad, for being honest.
He's not
Will
better
Levis,
than Dak Prescott right now.
Cooper Rush.
Yes.
Gardner Minshew.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's just there's a lot of. I do think it's situation, and we thought that Baker Mayfield was done, right? We thought Brett Favre was done. He's on the Jets, and he ended up having 2 good years. Perfect example. Sam Darnold. Obviously, some of these guys are younger than others, but I do think it really, at the bottom line, what it boils down to is how much he's willing to accept the fact that he's not going to get many more opportunities. His next team is most likely going to be the team that he retires with, and that it is kind of one of those things where if everyone else stinks, you're probably the one that stinks, and he has to kind of understand that. So the most important thing is going to a strong organization. And like we said, my thing with the Raiders is last year with the Raiders, I would say no. This year with the Raiders, Pete Carroll's a guy that has equity. He has that gravitas. He's a Super Bowl winning head coach that I think that he would respect. But those are my 5 teams. And yeah, Aaron Rodgers, man, just the enigma that is Aaron Rodgers.